Hi, welcome to the Brief Book Reviews channel, otherwise known as An Old Guy Reviews the book that he's read this week. What's the old guy read this week? Well, the book I've read this week is this one. It's called The Shadow Step by author Mark Billingham. Was published by Sphere here in the United Kingdom as a hardback on the 2nd of July 2026. And I guess most people will associate Mark Billingham with the D.I. Tom Thorne books. This, however, is the third outing for one of his other creations, DS Declan Miller, Blackpool's quirkiest and finest detective. The previous book, The Wrong Hands, I reviewed on the channel. Really enjoyed that. And it's fair to say that DS Declan Miller is a different type of detective. He talks to his dead wife, Alex. He's got a pair of rats that he keeps in his front room called Fred and Ginger. He's well into ballroom dancing, and the people he goes ballroom dancing with, he goes down to the pub later and talks about his cases. He's probably the most insubordinate copper you've ever met. Great sense of humour. Lots of banter with his colleague D.I. Sarah Juice. Her surname is spelled X-I-U, and she said it's actually pronounced Juice. So he calls her posh because, as we all know, Juice is just a posh name for gravy. So that's the sort of guy we're dealing with. This isn't your hard-driven cop. This is a guy with a sense of humour, but a sense of justice. And for those that have read the two previous books, this is in a similar vein. So I suppose the general description would be cosy crime with humour. And whilst it is very humorous, very witty, it's not comical, it's not slapstick, and it's very well written. So what's this all about? What's the story all about? Well, Declan gets some crazy cases. The previous one was a pair of hands found in a briefcase, and this is a slightly strange one. Book kicks off with a guy called Barry Cheshire. Barry's ex-army. He's done time. He's seen some stuff. He's been in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and now he's out of the army and he just wants a quiet life. He's got a slightly difficult relationship with his wife. He's living in the basement of the house with his dog Ruby, whereas his wife and her new lover are living in the rest of the house. So Barry's, just accepts his lot, and he's jogging away. He's taking his dog Ruby, who he adores, to the park one day. Comes across a guy that's got two XL bullies. Ruby's a tiny little dog. Ruby's a bit scared. There's a bit of an altercation, and in that altercation, the guy with the two XL bullies ends up falling into the pond in the park, and Barry and Ruby leg it. They soon find out that the guy that's fallen in the pond is now dead. So Barry, being an honest fellow, pops to the local police station and admits to the crime. I.e., this guy's been found dead in the pond. He says, "Well, I must have murdered him." So Declan and Sarah get the case, and they're thinking, hang on, Declan thinks, this guy, he doesn't. I don't get it. I don't think he's guilty of this. I think he's innocent. However, at the start of the book, there's a bit where Declan says it's amazing how things can escalate, and this is exactly what happens here. Because it turns out the guy who's got the XL bullies and is now dead is part of a drug dealing a group, organised crime group, which is headed up by a lady called Jackie Cutler. Now, Jackie's the Queenpin of drugs in Blackpool, where this place is set in north of England. And in the previous book, her husband Wayne was put away by Declan, and with Jackie provided information. It turns out Jackie's even more ruthless than her husband. So her and her enforcer, who's known as Google McDougal, he's called Google because he knows everything and everybody, rule with a rod of iron. And they think one of their dealers being killed, somebody's going to have to pay for that. And this is where things start to spiral and get out of control. So we have a murder, another murder, we have a kidnapping, and we have rival criminal enterprises in the Blackpool area thinking that Jackie and her team are now vulnerable, trying to get in on the action. So Declan and Sarah have got to sort all this stuff out. He's got a DI that he doesn't get on with called Tim Sullivan, but he does get on with his boss, his boss's boss, who's, let me just check, who's called DCI Susan Akers. It's terrible when you get old, you forget things. So that's basically the story. We've got the intrigue of a murder, of a kidnapping, of people getting the wrong end of the stick, and Declan being caught in the middle of it. Meanwhile, Declan continues to live his normal lifestyle where he's going out on a limb and perhaps crossing a line here and there, still doing his ballroom dancing, still being offended by all sorts of different things, and some of those things including he goes to see the drug Queenpin, and she's got a Victoria sandwich, and he's absolutely offended because she won't give him a slice. He's worried about the fact that Barry, the guy accused of murder, lives near a biscuit factory and the overwhelming smell of biscuits that comes along with it. So all sorts of quirky things going on, but it's a really enjoyable read. As I said before, it's witty, it's funny, without being slapstick and comical. It's a good story. We start off with the accident in the pond. We end up with a high-flying scene in a forest where everybody is in danger because one of Barry's ex-army guys is a slightly deranged squadie, and we've got that in the action as well. So we have a drugs Queenpin hell-bent on revenge. We have our enforcer Google McDougal who secretly fancies the drugs Queenpin, and we have a deranged squadie. So all that Declan has to deal with. So another great read, really enjoyed it. As I said, it's cosy crime with a sense of humour, but you're rooting for Declan throughout the book, because even though, if you were a friend of Declan, you'd look forward to going down the pub with him because he's always have a good story and he's got a fantastic sense of humour. If you were a work colleague, he'd probably drive you around the bend. But nevertheless, really good read. It's only 390 pages, the actual story, and I really enjoyed it. I think that's it for this week's brief book review. I thoroughly recommend it. A good, wholesome, bit of a murder mystery, but more of a book about the character of Declan himself, and that character is engaging and funny, and you're rooting for Declan all the way through the book. So that's it for this week's brief book review. 10/10 till we do it again. Thanks for watching. Bye.